Premier Smith, welcome back to Power Play. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Today you announced the completion of an agreement on the impact assessments with the federal government. It was one of the hurdles that you needed to hit by April 1st. So I wanted to know, does this agreement today mean that your government is dropping the court challenge of the amended Federal Impact Assessment Act, which was launched in late February?
We are not, but let me explain a little bit why, because what I'm very encouraged by with our MOU is that the federal government agreed to address most of our grievances. I'd called them the 9 bad laws. That agreement dealt with 7 of them, and one of them was addressing the issue of the Impact Assessment Act. We called it C-69, the No More Pipelines bill, and there was a reason for that, because under the convoluted policies they had, there wasn't really a pathway to get anything approved, and we saw that bear out over the last number of years. And so the fact that this now restores what I think the Supreme Court intended was that major projects within our boundaries are going to be governed by Alberta processes. That, I think, restores the original intention of how our country is supposed to work. That being said, we need to have the legislation changed at the federal level. We're grateful for this carve-out, but I think that that's another stage of the process. And we also just want to make sure that we're asserting that resource development really is an area of provincial jurisdiction, and so there's some more work to do over the coming years. But I think that this is going to be very positive for us in the immediate term.
So you don't think that today's announcement supersedes anything that the court could say and sort of clears the path for this type of agreement going forward?
Well, I would say that we have a couple of bad laws that are still on the books. I mean, when you look at the net zero power regs, we're glad to have a carve out there too. However, if you look at the Constitution, electricity systems are meant to be provincially determined. And so we always are frustrated when the federal government does end up legislating in areas of our provincial jurisdiction. At the moment, we have a good understanding about why it is we need to get these major projects built, but we want to make sure that that sustains over time. And with changes of government, and that's going to require a little bit more legislative change. So
today's announcement does, as you said, have to do with the MOU, and it's one of those things that had to be met by April 1st. Another one is carbon pricing and the equivalency agreement. On Monday, on this show, Minister Hodgson said that if the deadline is missed by a few days, it's not the end of the world. So I wanted to ask you, is that an indication in your mind that you're having trouble coming to an agreement?
There are a few things that we have to work through. I mean, I think you saw CNRL just said that their uncertainty around carbon pricing has caused them to pause on one of their major developments, which I think we all have to be mindful of, is that there's urgency on this. And so I think that the fact that the energy minister said a matter of a couple of days, that's very positive. He wasn't talking about it taking extra weeks or extra months, but there is some complicated discussions that are going on, including with all of the companies in that oil sands alliance when it comes to the pathways project and carbon pricing. And so we're all very committed to getting to an agreement very quickly. I think that this tells you how serious we are. We had 5 agreements we needed to come to a conclusion on. This is one of them, and the other 4 will be very quick to follow over the coming next few weeks.
I take your point on CNRL, but isn't the whole viability of the Pathways project based on that carbon price going up to $130 a ton?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think that they certainly want support from with investment tax credits on the construction side of things. There are discussions as well about the ongoing operating costs. But I think that the carbon price is something that is important to the Prime Minister. We have always had carbon pricing in Alberta going back to 2007 on the industrial price. We just have a bit of a different of agreement on how high that price needs to go and how quickly it needs to get there, and what the benchmarks need to be for how quickly we would expect our large industry emitters to get to that point. So those are conversations that are going well, but it does take a little bit of time because there's quite a bit of technical detail associated with it.
And I also understand that your government had frozen the industrial carbon pricing in your province, and it's not in line right now with the federal government. Is that one of the hiccups as well as you continue to negotiate this?
I don't think so. I mean, the MOU talked about $130 carbon price, and And the question is, how quickly do we get there? I think that when we're looking at the turmoil that's happening in the world, you're looking at countries like Italy saying, is now the right time to be pricing carbon at all? Our closest trading partner, the United States, has a very different approach for how they're addressing issues of industrial emissions. And we have to be mindful that we want to be consistent with what we're seeing other major players in the world doing, but we also have to be competitive with the United States. And so there's that's trying to find that exact right spot is taking a little bit of time, but we don't want to be in a position where we're so uncompetitive relative to the United States that it just causes investment dollars to go south. So that's why we have to make sure that the escalation is happening at a reasonable period of time, keeping in mind what is happening in the world economy, which of course just changed in the last week once more, and I think creates an additional need to recalibrate on that.
I certainly take your point about what you're seeing around the world, but I guess my question is, so is your issue here with the escalation and the rate at which it goes? Because the MOU clearly said $130 per ton. You're not disagreeing with that now, are you?
No, but I remember the status quo that we have right now was supposed to be 170 by 2030. So here we find ourselves in 2026. That's 4 years that the former government was expecting us to essentially double the carbon price. So I think we all agree that that's not going to be practical and not going to be achievable without causing massive damage to our industries. And so we're working on what that time scale should be. I mean, when you look at China doesn't have a plan to get to carbon neutrality till 2060. I think India is talking about 2070. And so we have to be mindful of whether the world has changed to a point where we have to slow down that level of increase. And I think we're all in agreement that the original plan was not one that was achievable. But as the world changes and as people are looking for a secure supplier of these crucial energy products, they're looking to Canada, and with good reason. Because as much as the many of the Middle East providers have been reliable in the past, when the Strait of Hormuz closes, that is causing devastation potentially to many of those economies, and they need to have alternative sources. Canada has a lot of things going for it. We are secure, we are reliable, we're an ally, we're friendly, we want to produce more, and we want to make sure that we don't have any artificial barriers to preventing these projects from being constructed at a pace that is going to meet the world demand.
On that, when you were here in Ottawa back in January for the First Ministers meeting, I had asked you about different routes for a pipeline, and you had ruled out Kitimat, that route to Kitimat. But what about south to Burnaby? Is that still on the table for you?
I believe the Roberts Bank proposal is one of the 5 ports that we're looking at. I haven't received a recent briefing. I think we've got that planned for another week or two, because I think it's the various ports are narrowing down to a couple that are going to be more viable than others. But everybody will be able to see what that looks like in June. That's the deadline we've set for ourselves of getting that project into the major projects office, and then we'll be able to scope it out. But our number one was, how do we get to a deep water port that requires minimal navigation, that would allow us to be able to address some of the issues of marine safety and marine response a little bit easier. And Kitimat was one of those complicated ones because of 140 kilometers of channel, that we were able to look at that pretty quickly and say there's just too much we'd have to mitigate, too much concern that the local nation and the local community had raised. And so we wanted to look at a more appropriate port so that we could address some of those issues.
Just in closing, I wanted to talk to you about the issue of separation in your province, or sovereignty. You've been very clear, and I don't think there's any ambiguity there, that you believe in a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada, if I've quoted you properly there. A recent poll by Albertans, though, of Albertans by Abacus Data, says that 53% of them believe that you would vote in favor of separatism. Now, instead of asking you to comment on that poll, I wanted to know, in the event of a referendum on separation in your province, would you lead the side that says to stay within Canada?
I'm already leading that side, and I'm doing it with my actions by working constructively with the federal government, by signing an MOU, by getting rid of the net zero power regs, the emissions cap, by getting by taking an approach that essentially undoes the damage of C-69 and various other things. And that's what I think is the constructive way of addressing the real grievances of Alberta. Albertans have real grievances. Ignoring them is not going to make them go away. Identifying them and addressing addressing them, as the Prime Minister and I are doing, is the way that we're going to give people hope that Canada can work again. So I'm hoping that we're able to convince people one by one that this is a genuine change of heart and this is a genuine change of direction. We're getting back to the way the country was always meant to work. So my work doesn't get delayed by months. It's started several months ago and it's going to continue day after day.
So does that mean you're hoping that we don't get to a place where there is that question put to the people whether or not they want to stay in Canada?
I trust Albertans, and it'll be up to Albertans to decide that. There's a petition campaign going on right now. They've got 2 more months to collect signatures, and I don't want to prejudge it, nor do I want to underestimate how seriously harmed Albertans are and how disappointed they've been in the way they've been treated by the Canadian government. So that's why I'm not demonizing anyone who is expressing legitimate grievances. My job is to identify them and to resolve them so that we can give people hope. Now, the package of proposals that we have in the MOU is only one thing we have to address. We've got to address issues that emerged because of out-of-control immigration policy at the federal level. The gun grab is another area of grievance. So as I say, I'm glad that we're making some progress with the federal government in this area. I think it's important, but there's still a lot more things that we have to do to address some of the legitimate concerns that Albertans have.
But I just want to come back to that question, though, because in the event that there is a referendum, there will be people that will be leading the side to leave, and there'll be people who will be leading the side to stay. Are you saying that you would not want to lead that side in favor of staying within Canada?
Mike, I said I'm already leading it. And those who want to wait for another few months to do what I'm doing, I would say to get off their duffs and to start making those positions known now. That my opposition leader, who's NDP, he should be calling the NDP leader in British Columbia, saying don't stand in the way of getting a pipeline built. He should be calling Avi Lewis, who keeps on talking about leaving oil and gas in the ground and phasing it out altogether. I'm telling you, those are the kind of things that are destructive to national unity. And so if anybody wants to help with the cause of national unity, then we should all get on board. Let's find a way to work together. Let's find a way to get our products to market. And let's stop talking down our most important and vital industry in the country that not only benefits us, but benefits all of Canada. So that's what I would say, is that I've already been advocating for Canada, and I wish some of those voices would too.
Okay, Premier Smith, we're going to leave it there for now. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you.